Billionaire mocked his tiny house, until 50 black cars arrived to take him home. Before we begin, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this remind us that true wealth is not always visible to the eye. Sometimes the richest person in the room is the one nobody notices. Stay with us until the very end, because this story carries a powerful lesson that may completely change the way you judge people. The rain fell softly over the small town of Maple Creek, turning the narrow streets into shining ribbons of silver. It was the kind of evening when people hurried home, eager to escape the cold wind that swept through the town square. On the edge of town stood a tiny house. It wasn't much to look at. The paint was faded. The porch leaned slightly to one side. The garden fence had been repaired so many times that it looked like a patchwork of old memories. Most people drove past without paying attention. But inside that tiny house lived a quiet old man named Samuel Reed. At 72 years old, Samuel had become a familiar sight in Maple Creek. Every morning he walked to the local bakery. Every afternoon he sat on a wooden bench near the park and fed birds. Every evening he returned home carrying groceries in worn cloth bags. Nobody knew much about him. And nobody really cared. To most people, he was simply another elderly man trying to get by. What nobody knew was that Samuel carried a story deeper than the ocean and heavier than a mountain. A story buried beneath decades of silence. A story that was about to shock the entire town. Especially one man. That man was Victor Langston. Victor was a billionaire. His name appeared in magazines. His face appeared on television. His companies stretched across continents. He owned luxury hotels, private jets, and mansions so large they looked like castles. People admired him. Feared him. Envied him. Victor believed success gave him the right to judge everyone around him. And on that rainy evening, fate brought him directly in front of Samuel's tiny house. Victor's chauffeur had taken a wrong turn while driving him to a nearby real estate development project. As the black luxury car slowed near Samuel's home, Victor glanced through the window. His eyes narrowed. "What is that?" he asked. The driver looked confused. "The house, sir." Victor laughed. The sound was cold and sharp. "That can't even be called a house." The driver remained silent. Victor continued staring. "I've seen storage sheds bigger than that." At that moment Samuel stepped onto his porch carrying a watering can. The old man noticed the expensive vehicle but paid little attention. He simply continued watering the flowers he had planted years ago. Victor rolled down the window. "Hey, old man." Samuel looked up. "Yes?" Victor smirked. "How do you survive living in something that small?" Several construction workers nearby began laughing. Samuel smiled politely. "It's enough for me." Victor shook his head. "Enough? That's the problem with people. They settle for too little." Samuel said nothing. The billionaire's laughter echoed again. "If I were you, I'd be embarrassed." The workers laughed even harder. Yet Samuel simply nodded. "I hope you have a good evening." Then he quietly returned inside. Victor found the response irritating. He expected anger. Embarrassment. Something. But the old man remained calm. As if the insult meant nothing. Victor rolled up the window. "Let's go." The car drove away. The workers continued laughing. But one elderly neighbor watching from across the street felt uneasy. Because she knew something nobody else knew. Samuel Reed was not who he appeared to be. 3 days later, Maple Creek prepared for its annual Founders Festival. The event attracted visitors from neighboring towns. Local businesses decorated storefronts. Children practiced performances. The entire community buzzed with excitement. Victor Langston was invited as the guest of honor. His company had invested millions into local development projects. The mayor planned a grand ceremony to celebrate the partnership. News crews arrived. Journalists prepared cameras. Everything was designed to impress. Victor loved every minute of it. The spotlight. The applause. The admiration. For him, success wasn't just about money. It was about being seen. Meanwhile, Samuel spent the morning exactly as he always did. He bought bread. Fed the birds. Then returned home. Nothing seemed unusual. Until noon. At precisely 12 o'clock, a distant rumble echoed through town. People looked toward the highway. At first they thought it was a parade. Then they realized something was different. One black luxury vehicle appeared. Then another. Then another. And another. Soon an entire convoy stretched across the road. 10 cars. 20 cars. 30 cars. 40 cars. 50 cars. 50 identical black vehicles moved through Maple Creek like a river of polished steel. Residents stopped walking. Store owners stepped outside. Children pointed in amazement. Nobody had ever seen anything like it. The convoy slowed. People assumed the vehicles were heading toward the festival. Perhaps another billionaire was arriving. Perhaps a government official. Speculation spread rapidly. Then the impossible happened. The lead vehicle turned away from downtown. The others followed. The entire convoy traveled toward the edge of town. Toward Samuel Reed's tiny house. Silence fell over the crowd. Even Victor, standing near the festival stage, watched in confusion. The vehicles stopped. All 50. Directly in front of the tiny house. Doors opened simultaneously. Men and women wearing elegant suits stepped out. Security personnel formed lines. Drivers stood at attention. The atmosphere felt almost royal. Then one distinguished gentleman emerged from the first limousine. His silver hair was perfectly groomed. His expensive suit probably cost more than most people's annual salaries. The man approached the front door. And bowed. Actually bowed. To Samuel Reed. Gasps spread through the crowd. Victor's face turned pale. The door opened. Samuel stepped outside. The suited man smiled warmly. "Welcome home, sir." The old man nodded. "It's been a long time." The man handed him a leather folder. "Everything has been prepared exactly as requested." Reporters rushed forward. Cameras flashed. Questions exploded from every direction. Nobody understood what they were witnessing. Then the truth began to emerge. A truth so extraordinary that it would leave the entire town speechless. Including the billionaire who had mocked a tiny house just 3 days earlier. And Victor Langston was about to learn the most expensive lesson of his life. To be continued.